Hey there, everyone. This is Jeremy, the Music Andy, and we're here today to talk about the unraveling of PUP the Band from PUP. Four dudes from Toronto making pop punk, indie rock, post-hardcore music. This is their fourth album in their catalog. I've been a fan of PUP ever since they come out. I actually discovered their music back when I was a kid. I think it was 2013, it was 2012, somewhere around there, when a baseball game actually took their song Back Against the Wall and put it into their game. And ever since then, I was a fan of it. I think it's a fantastic track still to this day. They are a band that I have no problem with when they're on. I just never really seek out their music too much. I think that they make very good tracks, but again, they never cemented themselves as one of my favorite bands in the punk scene. Still though, like I'm saying, I enjoy their music, and I think that as you're going through their catalog, they've been getting more and more mature with their songwriting. I think that they're developing their ideas more. I think that the grooves are getting a lot more rhythmically challenging. They're switching and transitioning a lot more. The progressions are becoming a lot more deeper, and the dynamics are becoming a lot more grand. They still are maintaining this teenage angst kind of energy, but at the same time, they acknowledge it. They don't take themselves too seriously. You know, they're too young to be mad as a lot of the punks are, and they're too old to be washed up. So we're just kind of in that in-between balance for PUP, and you can kind of hear it on this new album from theirs. With a title of an album like The Unraveling of PUP the Band, you would think that something catastrophic is going to happen. There's going to be some kind of huge changes to their sound, and there are a lot of changes to their sound, but for the most part, this is your standard PUP. Four Chords has PUP kind of starting off on a gradual, soft approach. They're, whining about relations, friends, just people in general. Classic PUP in nature with their lyrics. This piano starts off, again, very soft, and then it moves into a giant explosion. This happens because they miss a chord on the piano. They say fuck, and they just let it all loose. I think it does a good job of capturing the overall feelings on this album. Again, that this band is not taking themselves too seriously. They're quirky, they're having fun, and at the same time, they still have a lot of energy to give to their fans. And I think that this is a good demonstration of that. They're already cutting a joke into themselves 2 minutes into this album. Now we get into the track Totally Fine, and I think that this is a fantastic track. I definitely think it's a track that people are going to want to see live. The rhythms on this are kind of being thrown all over the place. The instruments never really find a footing. It's a very fresh listen. And there's song chanting in this one, and I think that, again, people will have a lot of fun with this track live. In comparison, if we take this song and we take it and we compare it to a track, again, let's just say Back Against the Wall off of their first album, they're a lot more quirkier in their sound nowadays. Again, everything is kind of loose. Nothing really has a place that's definitive for it. Nothing is cemented in an idea. Once they start developing an idea, it either gets run with for a little bit or they completely drop it and switch it and have a whole new approach. PUP in the past was kind of just straight up in your face. It was kind of fuck you, punk rock. It was power chords. It was, really getting energy and rhythms going. And once that idea was kind of developed, you ran with it, and the energy and momentum was the thing that was constantly changing. I think that this is a big change. This track kind of signals a big change in the band as they're getting older. And again, they've done it in a very well-mannered way. Robot Writes a Love Song is a fantastic track. It's probably one of my favorite tracks on this album. I think that the lyrics on this are very fun. It's a very fun take on a love song, a traditional love song. The guitars, the instruments, again, are kind of all over the place. It's that quirky nature. They're not really cementing to one idea. And a lot of the key changes on this are very off balance. It kind of adds a drunken stagger to the rhythm. As soon as you think that you are finding that rhythm and you're kind of moving a little bit, the key changes in the whole mood of the environment on the track is gone. Matilda is a track that's a lot more straightforward. It doesn't really have too much to play around with it. It's kind of, like opening bridge, chorus, and then you kind of go back and forth on the hook. I think that the vocals on the hook are very nice. This track is probably one of my least favorite ones. It is a little bit more one-directional. And it's not doing it in a very satisfying way on the tones and everything like that. I like a lot of the more angsty, aggressive tones on the first album. This one feels a little bit less. They don't really have too much more to be angry about. But still, it is a very fun listen. Kind of reminds me of Prince Daddy and the Hyenas, the way that they're writing music nowadays. Relentless, much like Matilda, again, is a much more One Direction kind of song. It kind of does it in the staple pop punk power pop way. But the ending on this one, I feel it ties it a lot more together. Waiting, the next track has the guys kind of move into much more of a post-hardcore sense. These guitars are a lot more darker. They're a lot more sludgier. The grooves are a lot more forefront and you kind of get caught into them. This is the one time that they're going to give you a rhythm and you're going to kind of just stick into it a little bit better. Then we move into this chorus that's a lot more playful. It's a lot more uplifting. And I typically like contrast in music. If you are a fan of this channel, one thing that I always say is that I really like contrast in music. It's a thing that I really look forward to. It really excites me as a listener. But this contrast felt a little bit forced. It felt a little bit too indifferent between each other. I don't like the nature of these rugged, rough guitars and then this playful, light chorus. But if you're a fan of it, I absolutely understand. I think that it is a very nice chorus and a very nice hook. It's just a very strange spot on this track. The lyrics go with it super well. Everything was kind of leading into it, but why the instrumentation with it, not 100% sure on this. I still like the song, absolutely, but again, it kind of off-put me a little bit. I think that the end of this track, probably around the 2-minute and 20-second mark, the guitars really start to pick up, and then the little solo that happens at 2:30, I was completely blown away for. I really liked the energy that was going on to this. And then again, they just went into that chorus, that hook, that I didn't like as much, and it kind of ruined that feeling for me. But again, I still like this track, and I probably, as I listen to this album more and more, maybe I'll come to like it a little bit more. Habits kind of came out of left field for me. There's this noisy synth, this drum machine loop kind of going on. It's completely out of left field, like I said, kind of off-balanced me as a listener. But at this point in the album, I think that it was a very good thing. It kind of regained my focus and put my focus right back onto the album instead of letting these songs kind of bleed into each other. The harmonies that start to come into this song really started to get me emotional, but they were gone as soon as they came in. I wish that they ran with it a little bit more. But all of the moving parts in this track, all of the instruments and the vocal melodies and the lyrics, I think all work together as a well-oiled machine, all of them in unison and having good synergy with each other. I think it's a very nice track. Cutting off the corners is a very gradual beginning on it. It has some of the nicest progressions. I think they're the most organic progressions on this entire album. This is a track that really didn't grab me on my first few listens. But on the 4th or 5th listen of this album, this is honestly one of my favorite tracks on this one. I think, again, it has some of the most organic progressions. I think it has some of the best dynamic nature of this album. I think that the lyrics about, abandonment and just trouble with relations and just giving it your all, ending up sleeping on the porch like a dog, I think that it is nice. I think it's very heartfelt. I think that they did a great job with this track. Grim Reaping has the band kind of towing the line between all of the genres that are associated with this album. It has some elements of post-hardcore. It's got some pop punk in it. It's got some indie rock in it. But they're not really ever taking one full stance on it. They have their feet kind of all mixed into all of the areas that I just described. This is a track that I don't think is necessarily bad by any means, but it didn't really have me hold on to anything after I listened to it. I think that the horn section on this is nice, but I'm just kind of a sucker for horns. Man, look at that light come in. Holy hell. Then we have our finisher on this one, and that is PUP the Band is filing for bankruptcy. Funny title. I hope that they're not filing for bankruptcy. It's not funny anymore if they are. But I think that this is probably the best track on this entire album. And of course, they throw it right at the end of the album for me. Great guitars on this one. Instrumentally, probably my favorite track on this one. Lyrically, probably one of my favorite tracks on this one as well. It's super sarcastic. It's very angsty. It's very snarky. It reminds me of like a kid going and passing from his parents after being yelled at and just muttering words underneath his breath as he goes to his room. Man, look at that light again. The line about the insurance company, about it being so inspiring and that maybe in a few years down the line they're probably going to get a job in it as well, was very funny. Had me dying on my first listen, even past the first listen. If PUP made an album that sounded exactly like this track all the way through, I'd probably be one of my favorite albums from PUP. But that's not up to me to decide what kind of music they make, and I still think that this is a very solid album overall. Now going back to the word overall, this is probably my third favorite album from them, kind of towing between, second and third. Maybe as I get to listen to this a little bit more, it'll probably climb up in rankings because each listen that I'm doing on this one, I'm noticing more details and things are catching on to me a little bit more than usual. I think that this album has a lot of quality put into it, but it has some moments on it that kind of off-put me as a listener, and that's just my own biasism. And it's just some of the key changes that they do on this that I feel are a little bit bizarre when it comes to the kind of music that they're making, especially. I really love the old energy of the band when they had that punk nature kind of festering inside of them. Now they're doing it in a lot more of a quirky, fun way, again, not putting themselves too seriously. In comparison, I would compare them again to like Prince Daddy and the Hyenas. I believe that's a really good comparison to the group. I'm thinking 7.4 bankrupt notices out of 10 on this one. What did you think of this album? What albums would you like me to review in the future? Please leave a comment below and let me know. Subscribe if you like the content, and I hope they have a wonderful day. Thank you again, guys, for having me hit over 100 subscribers. It means a lot to me. Again, thank you and have a great day.